Hi, I'm Marty Grizzanti, and this is the Marty Grizzanti Show. As a full-time real estate investor and business owner, I have a real fascination of finding the key principles for business success and personal development. This show is a reflection of my personal mission to find out what truly makes somebody successful in business and in life. We will find tools and tactics that they've used to reach those levels. If you're the type of person who is not satisfied with average and you have a hunger for learning that will never cease, this show is for you. Welcome to the show.
For those that were listening, I was spilling my heart to Jeremiah about his story and how basically he started. We were talking about back in Las Vegas, buying houses, single family homes, and in those times you could buy houses with literally no money down. Those ninja loans, no income. You could just it'd be ridiculous. They kind of set people up for failure. Now we're going to take responsibility for our actions, of course, but at the end of the day, there was a system in place and people were using that system. When the financial collapse occurred, Jeremiah in his book talked about how he lost all of his properties that he had built up, really hit rock bottom. And I was telling him, one of the things that's happening for me is I feel like those that this is crazy, but I feel like those who hit rock bottom are able to then immediately find something and go, okay, I'm going to focus on mobile home parks or focus on whatever it is that they want to focus on, that they see a big opportunity on. And then they just go all out on that one thing. I was telling him, I'm very gratefully that we're having success with our flips and we're buying them correctly, because we're buying them under market value and then adding value and then selling them for a profit. There's still a opportunity for us in flipping. There's still an opportunity to us in buying single family houses. And I think there's this mindset that's out there where it's like, especially, and I'll just say it, in the group I'm in with the mastermind, where like, if you're in residential, that's almost like we look down on you. And I'm like, I'm still having a lot of success though with this. I do want to move into commercial because I know there's a lot more opportunity, because I know that's where, a lot of money can flow, and that's where some of the bigger players are. So if I want to be that type of person and I want to kind of have those types of opportunities, I need to go where the flow is. So I'm kind of in this I'm in this thing where it's like, man, do I need to just like stop doing something that I'm having success in order to focus on the one thing? Or is there an opportunity that I can kind of do both? And so I'm kind of in that conundrum, and we're just shooting the shit. It was a lot better because we were really chatting about this, but now that I wasn't recording, but now we are. So anyway, welcome to the show, everybody.
So to get on to that, let's jump right into it. So I would say, all right, Marty, this show is about real estate entrepreneurs, real estate owners, business, anyone that has a business that revolves around real estate. So your core business is real estate investment, and going through some of the processes of that traction book and EOS, by Gino Wickman there. Good book, good operating system for a business. I think it for me, having that framework where now I have to go through these exercises if I'm going to decide to run my business through this. And it's a very simple framework that allows me to communicate key ideas across the organization so that I can get the people that I have hired or that I've decided to be on my team and go allocate their resources to my strategy. So you're defining your strategy right now. And we always like to use sports as a good metaphor because, we're guys and we relate to it really well. And business is a great way to, it's still a game. It's a competitive game, just like sports. So let's think of it this way, okay, we want to communicate this. What is our mission, our focus, our core driver of our team, and for us, and you just mentioned it in what you do, we deliver value, that period. So whatever we buy, it doesn't matter what we buy per se. We want to deliver value. When we deliver value to the sellers that sell us their property, we deliver value to the tenants, all the customers and people that occupy our commercial and residential properties. We deliver value to our investors by driving returns. And they're taking a shot on somebody that's an alternative investment. It's different, it's unconventional. It's a young and hungry guy that knows what he's doing. He's done it for a while, but now, he's out there ramping it up, needs capital. So they want, 20% plus returns if they can. They're gonna jump on us and see how we grow, and they want to be compensated for that. And we also add value to our joint venture partners either vendors, people that we work with, and we add value to each other, our employees. So so we deliver, but our core mission for us, is what do we do? That is what we do. And then you have to have a culture in your organization. So I'm just kind of giving you the framework around building the team before you determine the strategy purely. And really that culture for us, as I went through this whole thing where, culture is more important than I thought, because yes, we need the skills, we need the technical skills to do the marketing and have the sales expertise and finesse to, build trust and close deals and to communicate and understand. I mean, that stuff is essential, and know the accounting and the CapEx and the development and the operations. Like that is the nuts and bolts, the blocking and tackling of the business. But if you have that prima donna on the team, or if you don't have key players in key positions, you're always going to lose. I mean, if you don't have one key quarterback or one key wide receiver, you just cannot win the game. You have to have a dynamic team, and they have to buy into the culture where they're willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And our job is to deliver value to the investors. So, and that culture, quickly is the Patriot way. You don't love my team, but you might respect, at least the culture. So, the P is for, passion and pride in what we do. A is accountability. Everybody takes accountability for their job. The T is teamwork and teachability. So we're open-minded and we got each other's backs. The R is resourceful. So we figure out a way. You always got to do something creative and different. The O is obsessed, or the I, I'm sorry. The I is integrity. So we treat people with respect, and we stand behind our word. The O is obsessed with our skills and our craft, and we always want to get better. And the T is tenacity. Like we fucking dig into it. Like you and I, we're scrappers. That's never going to go away, no matter how big our company gets. So that culture for me now is like, okay, I know what we're doing, and I know the culture that I want to have, and I want to make sure that everybody buys into that. All right, now let's look at, where is the core business going to be, so that we take that strategy and we go out there and employ it. And I was just thinking this morning, okay, you got your coordinators. So you're the head coach. You're in the head coach. What do? They make decisions. They are the final say on everything. But you got all your coordinators across there, implementers. So they are, like if you have, so we could just decide if we have an offense, defensive mindset, we can have some creative different plays, run a West Coast offense or a run the ball offense, all that stuff. But our implementers have to go out there and execute. So, even if you're not at the size of being able to have lots of, coordinators or position coaches. So for me, it's like key execs. So now I'm able to hire execs where, Tim's the COO. I got Diane as a co-COO. I brought in Shane as a CIO, as an investment manager. So, I got Chris in finance. I got a lot of people. So I got these key people in positions, Alec in finance. Now I can go in there and I get to dictate the strategy that we're all going to employ. So that was a long answer of saying for you, it's, I have multiple strategies. I'm not, I don't think that one strategy is exactly what you or I need in order to win the game of delivering value. So, for us, you have to adapt with the market. I did things ahead of time because, just like the Pats picked up that West Coast short, pump and dump offense, right? And 5 yards at a time with Wes Welker and James White and those guys. It was so early, like for us, like I want to do something that's a little ahead of what everyone else is doing, and then everyone else catches on. So yeah, I think you did come to the game a little bit late with storage when you shared that earlier before the call was recording. And, the game for me, I had to transition out of mobile home parks because, it was starting to get more, everybody was doing it. There was no edge. It was saturated with investors. So for you to have a niche in your core region in the Rochester area that's making a comeback where you have some good industry coming in there, you're seeing positive growth in the news and in the economic, news out there. And then you also have, affordable housing, which is, you'd have to say, it's still the most dominant asset class in the entire world. That's just, you cannot AI that away, right? So, stick with that niche where you essentially you're a private equity operating, management company, whatever you want to call it, investment company. So that is one of your core pillars. Just build part of your team, build a coordinator around buying and building, up that part of the business of, getting in light, having quality housing, generating cash flow, generating capital gains from sales. That's going to build up revenue for your company. And that's still going to be a key strategy that you have an edge with. So do not leave that alone. Now you can also be, we talked about you getting into industrial property before this was on, and this small bay industrial, I'm a big fan of it. So, and you're ahead of the curve here. You are anticipating a trend, and we're seeing that whatever the stats are, and anyone, 70, 80% of employment is through small business, or maybe it's 60, 70. But the small business owner in this country is still the dominant employer and the grower of GDP. I mean, that's why America is so great, because an entrepreneur can go out there and build a business for himself and his family. So we're providing that space for people where there's less and less product, because no big player wants to go out there and build it. No one wants to deal with, like you said, the local electrician or the local, plumber or siding guy. So you getting out there and either buying older products, or what I was pushing you towards is working on building or buying and expanding and building newer products where it's industrial bays, 1,000 square feet, 1,600 square feet. They can take multiple units. They can take a single unit. They can park their vans. They can, it's grade level. They can put all their stuff in there. They get one bathroom. They get one office. They get their own power meter. It's very, very simple, and it's turnkey. They're ready to go. They want to be in tomorrow. So I love where your head's at with that. And then you have to identify and adjust, you being the head coach. If your strategy is not working, if you're employing running the ball or that West Coast offense, and it's just not working because all the defense is picked up on it, you gotta pivot. You can only do something so long. So if you're driving on storage, like you were sharing with me earlier, and you're seeing everybody bought between 2016 and 2021, and they all have a premium price expectation because offers were getting thrown around because all the newbies came to the market, and I came in there 2016. I'm the same. So, if the opportunity doesn't exist, or you feel it's not an allocation of your resources that you want to do, so, pivot it and go to this other, I guess, strategy where you can employ a coordinator there and build on that. And I would say not bounce around too quickly, pick a couple strategies and stick with them, which you're doing. And with that strategy, I'm up against kind of the same ideas where, I have there's this argument in what we do about, should you be regional based? Should you focus on location, or should you focus on asset, or should you focus on both? That's kind of a decision that, as a early investor or any investor that's developing a strategy as the coach of the team has to decide. So for me, I did see advantages in storage and industrial by being regionally focused. I've seen a lot of other guys that we compete with and that are big or smaller than me, but all over, and I've seen them get into national assets that are on industrial. And I feel like they're making some mistakes that if you were more regionally focused, you would understand more of the nuances and the building codes and the tenant, the tenant marketing, and you have the tenant relationships with some of your brokers. So I think that if you're going to go that route, I like that regional focus. I think for me, if I'm going to continue to stay focused and be in the Northeast over there. But there's also another strategy with, for you, maybe housing, you can bounce around, maybe not, maybe that's purely focused there. For me, maybe, I did bounce around and I was able to buy mobile home parks and just be asset dominant, where I just, I could buy anywhere and make it work. But that's a decision I'm still mulling around. So I think you getting clarity on that strategy and then working simultaneously where, that single family home market, though, there is a cap. I guess if you stay regional and you stay in that one asset class, I think there's only so far, and unless you argue with it, that you can grow that business. And then you have to channel that into the commercial real estate assets that so many investors, smaller investors, want to do, and then take that vehicle and be able to grow and scale that vehicle. But from what you told me at the beginning of the call too, is like, your ambition is not to have, 5 million square feet of industrial. You want to have, a couple of great projects to start, have, I'm assuming low CapEx, somewhat newer product or decent product, good quality tenants that are going to service the community for forever. Someone's going to use those spaces, and you just want some nice steady cash flow off those. So I'd say, you're on the right track to make that pivot, but don't, I would say, pick it and stick with it, don't, and I know you're working on some apartments, some other things, and that might complement the residential side of things. But I think that 2 or 3 asset classes, ideally 2 core is in maybe 1 dominant region. For me at this stage, that helped me a lot grow my business and get a handle on all the operations and all the the perceived, or not even perceived, all the potential errors and the potential fuck ups, for lack of a better word, that I could make, right? Because I kind of had some synergies that could help fix those screw ups, because I didn't know all the different things about industrial or about certain regions, about leases or tenants. So I don't know what you got out of that, but that's my advice for you.
I think it's a couple things. And earlier, when you were talking about, is there an edge? Like, is there an edge there when you're looking at it? And can you find it quick? If not, then you might be just spinning your wheels. And is there a better opportunity for you with the time and the resources and the know-how you already have, rather than relearning something that might be already on its last phase of the cycle, kind of thing?
That's it.
And then the other thing would be value. I think that's the other biggest part of what you were saying was, okay, you know that you need to add value. Okay. And again, in a number of ways, whether that's with your investors, adding value, putting their money to some place that's going to work and give them a nice opportunity with you with real estate, whether it's like you said, with the apartment buildings, or with the real estate, the single families that we buy, and we buy them creatively, which is our edge. And buying it creatively is an edge, because again, it's getting in with, we were talking about buying a property, no money down, and what does that do? And it allows us to go into something and maybe put more money into the property than just putting it into the down payment or into the cash of the purchase of the property. And that gives our edge with our tenants, and making sure that we're doing a really, really good job with our management. And even more so, where we didn't do such a good job was, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but we weren't raising rents on a strategic, yearly basis. We weren't doing that. And what happens is, I feel like there's a lax that goes on, where you might not get to a maintenance problem as soon as you need to, because the rents are a little lower. And like, well, this person's been there forever. And again, you kind of can sell yourself on that. But I feel like when we push our rents, the tenants are better and we're better, and because they expect more. And it's good for the company, and I think it's good for everyone involved, and it's just good for that little ecosystem that you're creating in your company and with your tenant, and for your product. You get better product. And anyway, so that was the two things is that be a value person, add value, find it and do it, and then find the edge of where you can add the value, and you should have something pretty powerful. So I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and a couple points on that, and then I guess I would tailor off on that. And you're not in this phase quite yet, but you're getting there. Is in then developing your team around that value add strategy. I mean, that's where I'm at this stage, where it's really comes down for me. It's who, not how. At this stage, I would say 90% of all my problems can be solved by finding someone that can actually do the job and do it well. And they align with the strategy, and they align with my culture and vision. So it's like, and that's where my head's at right now. It's like, who are the key players, the 8 players that can deliver on my mission of delivering value to people. So it's that's where my head's at. And I have to just be super clear on the good old Tony Robbins days of that RPM method of like, what's the result that I want to achieve? And then what's the purpose? Why am I doing it as the leader? And then what is the map? What is the map to get there? And for me, I now have more resources. For me, the map is that hiring these key people, aligning the incentives in a way where they get, units in our fund, or they get, a larger compensation, or they get free time on the Friday, whatever it is, or they get this feeling of community and connection, that they are, important, and that they are adding value and improving their lives and other people's lives, investors and their families' lives. So it's like, people want to feel connection. They want to feel like they're aligned with our vision and mission and our culture, and being able to buy into that. And I was so busy, just doing the day-to-day, just trying to get by. I didn't have time to implement any of that stuff. And I've made it a key priority. But I think, for a leader like you, early in a company, and you're in like the lower leagues, and you're elevating yourself into minors, majors, right to the pros. I would say, like, you defining your priorities. If I could give myself advice 10 or 20 years ago, like, even if I had, a lot of good ideas at this stage, if I can define my priorities to less than a handful, And I have those on a week by week basis, clearly articulated, very simple. I put it in my Google Keep or Microsoft Notes or whatever you use, Apple Notes. If I have those 5 priorities in my head at all times, even when there's absolute chaos around me, I know this is what's most important. I took the time, I took an hour. I really thought through all of the things we're talking about right now. I wrote some things down. I got my thoughts out there. I know the 5 priorities this week that are going to deliver on that vision. And it's going to be the key pillars to help me take that next step to get to where I want to go. And like every week now, I'm getting more and more clear on that. And it's helping me. And I have a long way to go, but this is just something that Traction helped me with. But I'm sure there's a million different other books that allow that. And now I'm helping other people in the company define their 5 priorities at all times. These are your key priorities. Because I was, in our annual meeting, people said communication and clarity were their biggest concerns in the company. And hearing that from the top down, made me wake up and say, okay, I got to get better at this. I got to communicate, what this vision and mission is, and we got to track it to get there so people know we're getting close or we're not. And I got to share what really my culture is that I want at the company, and if people buy into it or not, and they can leave or stay. So yeah, I think that, to me, that stood out. But what I wanted to get onto is value is even with your tenants, it's interesting, especially in this world where we get this opportunity and platform where people took whatever it's going to be, a half hour to 45 minutes to listen to us here. And, the asset is the attention. We get to share our communication and hear other people communicate. And this is a fucking amazing thing that's an innovation in the last few years. And this platform to be able to share, with what you're doing with your tenants, you have these older tenants, or you're on low income, or it's workforce housing, or it's family housing. Even if you're discounting the rents, Marty, even if you're consciously choosing, like, I don't want to raise the rent on this person, that's fine. That's fine. But you need to communicate the value that you're adding. You have to share and create the standard and framework and the paradigm that these are market rents. So we provide you a great product, and we're not slumlords that just keep the rents low and try to just not touch the property. We're going to provide great management. We're going to provide great improvements at the property, amenities. And then, we're going to give you good service and listen to you. We respect you. Now, if you want to keep the rents discounted, that's fine. Just like the big storage operators do. Just, you have to let them know they got a concession. Like, you're delivering value to them. For them being a value tenant, you're going to give them a discount and concession. So they better know that. So when you send that invoice out, you better say, hey, this is the fair market rent, and you're getting, for being a valued customer, you're getting a 5 or 10% discount or whatever it ends up being. And you can raise the rents too. I mean, you can just share, hey, these are the market rents. This is what we offer. We want to deliver the highest quality product. In order to do that, we have to charge. But, you have to be able to share that, because people that don't perceive the value don't value it. Kids that get money for free don't value it. They just spend it like there's no value to it. So you have to make sure your tenants acknowledge that they're getting value, and they might not even know that. And then they're going to feel the reverse. They'll feel entitled that, why my rent's this? Why are you raising it on me? Because, I should have low rent. You're a scumbag. No, market rents are here. This is what it is. And this is where we're giving you rent. And this is the value we're giving in return.
That's super good. Like, thinking about, I was just, a clear picture in my head was, we'll use storage, for example, but you send the monthly invoice comes in, and you see that, competitor XYZ is charging, $50 for a 10 by 10 or whatever the number is. And you're at 40, and you're like, by the way, you have the 3 competitors with their prices, and just going, but, just by the way, if you don't like the new $45 charge, let me show you where the rates are currently. That's interesting. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, or when you invoice your tenants or on their portal, when they go in on their portal for multifamily, you should definitely, be able to show, hey, this is fair market value. This is your concession.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And oh, by the way, this is like just my thing, but it's like, oh, by the way, we're taking care of the lawn care. You're not doing that. We're doing all these, added, because, people, like you said, and even in our life, in your life, if people don't remind you that, hey, by the way, I've been doing this for you, like an employee. Hey, by the way, I've been doing XYZ for you guys. And it, just I don't know if you've realized that. It's like, oh, wow, that's great. I didn't know that. And glad you brought it to my attention. Now I need to compensate you for that. So it's, yeah, you got, again, goes back to value, letting people know. Maybe you have to really just continue to let people know, and or everything, it does get, deferred, the deferred maintenance of the company. Then you gotta stay on top of it. So yeah, that's good. That's great.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So where we're
So
at,
you're,
what?
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Marty.
I was gonna say I was curious. You're at a conference, and what's kind of going on there. You're there. I was wondering what the reason
Yeah.
why was, and what you're getting it, and how you're going to implement it.
Yeah. What do we got on time? We 20 minutes in, something like that. We're
Yep.
good. Okay. All right. So, this is a good one. This is a good topic here, and I always like talking to you so everyone can listen to it. So, all right, these guys they branded themselves Fund Launch. All right, and guy's name is Bridger Pennington, and he has this. It used to be called IFS, Investor Fund Secrets, and I started watching some of their stuff a couple years back. And I think it's the same with the evolution of what you're going through and being a real estate investor, going from residential to commercial investment, taking that elevation in the jump of the business of the progression. This is a progression of capital raising. So, I think what everyone starts out is, for the most part, if you don't come from money, you fund something yourself, and then you figure out, I don't have enough money to do this business or buy this property. Now I have to go get money from others. And then what, we went through a couple of weeks ago, you go out there and you open up a partnership. And then when you open up a partnership, you have to understand, okay, what is the basics of a partnership? What are the different terms that we're going to be offering in this partnership? And then who is the lead, who is the GP, the general partner, the manager, the leader of that partnership, who's the limited partner, who's the person that actually is going to be investing and giving you the cash, and they don't have a say in it, but they are an investor and they expect a return for taking a risk on you. So, that is the kind of the next evolution when you're trying to raise capital, and you're going through it now. And then it comes to this next stage, where this conference tries to teach people, okay, now you're aggregating capital, you're opening a fund. And what that means is that you're taking money from multiple sources of people or institutions or companies, and then you're going out there and then you're deploying it, and you're going and buying multiple assets with this fund, with this pooled amount of funds. And there's so many various ways of creating funds, where they talk about hedge funds and venture capital funds and private equity funds. And private equity can be focused on a business model of buying real estate. They could be in healthcare. They could be in buying dental offices. They could do anything. Right. So it intrigued me because, one thing, it's kind of it's a mysterious world, right? Where you enter this institutional per se, labeled money world. And in this money world, there's a lot of terms and phrases that average middle class, lower middle class people like us growing up never heard. And then you walk in to some of these fancy office buildings at the top of, high rises in Boston or New York or LA, or you're in these conferences where everyone has a sophisticated education behind them, and they put in their graduate and undergraduate degrees, and worked at a firm, some type of investment firm, and they're speaking in languages that you don't understand, right? And when I looked at that 10 years ago, I just avoided it, because I thought, I don't need that. I'm just going to do my real estate thing. And I was taught by the same mentor as you, and I had a handful of partners that kept putting money in some of my deals, and I was able to find some good deals, and I was able to grow. But it got to a point where I couldn't achieve my goals, and I couldn't build the company big enough where I could hire enough people to actually do the jobs that allowed me to grow, where I was a frantic mess. And when I was presenting to that group in 2019 or 2018, I had a breakdown, but I was very expressive about how I felt about that. And I hit a threshold where I said, enough is enough. I have no more time in my day. Like I have to be able to grow to a degree where I can build enough fees to pay enough people to manage all these properties and to run this investment fund with me. I have to have income, to have employees. So you're going to get to that point. And when you do that, you at least what I found out, and unless you're doing really, really big sizable deals on a one-off basis, 20, 30, $40 million deals, and you're raising on each of those deals in a partnership, unless you're doing that, because that would allow you to generate some significant fees to continue to pay your employees. Unless you're doing that and you're doing these $2 to $10 million deals like we're doing, and everyone listening to the show sees that we buy these storages and mobile home parks and small bay industrial, you're going to have to do volume. And when you do volume, you're going to find out that all the partnerships are very difficult to service. You don't want to compromise service and your investors as a partnership. The biggest and most important thing that they want from you, service, is communication and clarity. And when you have 40 or 50 syndications, it starts to get very difficult. And you have a handful of investors in each syndication. So you have over 100 investors. It's very difficult to give them that quality service and communication and clarity, because you have so many different unique partnerships, and some of them, aren't, and all of them aren't synergistically tied together. So you can't share a win in one, and then the other one, gets like, why did you do that one with that guy? And, why aren't you doing what my deal, and you're all over the place. And I'm not saying that's okay. It's not, you don't always have to have funds, but I'm just saying these are some of the things that you go through. And in the beginning, though, what I feel is valuable is doing what you're doing. And what I feel in this group is people need to focus on it when he's teaching people about raising funds, is they're skipping this process of actually going through and starting and getting a proof of concept on individual deals and getting a little track record behind your belt. I had that 10+ year track record where I felt confident and comfortable in those two asset classes, that I knew, okay, I can now start to scale up and build a bigger vehicle in a fund and start to enter that world where all these sophisticated people are talking with these terms I don't understand. So for me, it was like, okay, my edge, my niche was I got in there and I learned in and out these two asset classes. I understand who owns them. I understand the obstacles and challenges. I understand the customers. I understand the platform and the environment that's out there, and then where the opportunities lie. And then I was in there and I was able to pick up on that. Once I understood that, I had some confidence where I could come in and now start to raise capital at scale. That's where I was like, okay, now it's time to start to consolidate this stuff. And no matter how good, if I can get a good 50-50 deal and I get a good partnership, like you have a guy that you have a good partner, he'll come in, fund the deal. You give him all the profits until he's paid back, and then you split the profits and you basically work for him and you do a good job, and he's happy with you. But you're going to find where if his family in the future doesn't want to do any deals, or you found a couple good deals, but then you grew a little bit and you want a few more, and he's like, you know what, 5 million's enough. Like, I really don't want to invest more than that. You're going to have to go out there and pursue other capital sources. So being able to understand that and deliver on that for me was, okay, now it's time to progress into this next world of funds. So I could learn terms like, what's the difference between an American and a European waterfall structure, and be able to talk that language, or what's the difference between different unit classes of shares and how are they taxed differently, and how do you incentivize larger investors to get into your funds, and do you offer preferential treatment to bigger investors or not? Or how do you open a fund, and how do you register, as an exempt fund from the SEC? And how do you, accredit investors, make sure they're accredited so that you're complying and you're not advertising to people, or you're not taking funds from people that aren't accredited, that aren't allowed to be giving you funds, where you're breaking the law. All these things, I think what they're doing is a good job here. But I feel like there's some missing pieces where there's a responsibility to these people that are going out and raising a lot of funds. They're going out and convincing people through great, offers and sales techniques and, presentation and marketing and all that good stuff. And, America's great. You can be an entrepreneur and go out and have an idea and go raise money and go make money. But, I feel like a lack of clarity about the underlying business or the underlying opportunity that is there in order to capitalize it with the funds could be extremely dangerous, right? I mean, like, it's a very competitive marketplace. If you don't train for 20 years to be on the field for the NFL, or 10, 15 years, you're going to get out there and get absolutely annihilated, right? Yeah. In a second. So it's absolutely. Like, I'm thinking, like, this fund world is big boy game, It's like, so I'm just like, man, I'm seeing some of the sheep that are, they're posed like wolves, But underneath it all, when they do get in the arena, everyone sees that they're just a sheep and they're going to get eaten up. So, that's just my opinion. And these guys are in a lot of different crypto, and they're in hedge funds investing in healthcare and all these in equities, doing day trading. I mean, so for me, it was just a great perspective to understand, okay, this world out there of fundraising, because at the end of the day, we all have to, if we're going to grow a business and scale it, we're going to have to raise funds. So this is the environment. This is the field that we're all playing on. Now I can understand where I fit on this field and what league I am in, what rank I am in here. And then now I can kind of define where I want to play and when I want to elevate to different levels. And I can also now communicate to the investors, okay, this is how I relate to the other players in the game. So that way, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, I know where I sit at the table, and I'm not delusional that I have this amazing hand, and I really don't, I'm missing all these pieces. So it goes down a deep rabbit hole, Marty, and I get off on these things. But I think for me, what it did, is, and we can learn more about funds, and I can share about the future of that and all that good stuff. But what I think, when we talked about my failure as a young man, trying to invest in real estate and really not having an edge, just going on with the crowd, getting loans, buying properties, single family properties in Vegas, trying to ride the market up. Every realtor and stripper had homes all over the place. The whole thing fell apart in House of Cards. It was it just collapsed, and Big Short, just perfect movie for young people that want to know what happened. That's exactly what happened. I was devastated. Tax liens, I had foreclosures, I had credit card defaults. It was a 10-year rebuild on my credit. But what I knew right there, it was like, okay, like I got to build one, that my identity is not how much money I have. So even when I was living in my buddy Al's foreclosed house, and I had no money, and I couldn't even pay for that girl's piece of corn, that I said, I was fucking broke and I couldn't even get a date. It was a long, dry spell out there. So I was like, okay, like I have to, this is not who I am as a man. I might be broke right now, but you know what? Like I do have like value, and I understand that I'm going to learn this thing, and this is just part of the process. And at the time, I didn't really, it wasn't like I really truly understood that this is an unconscious, subconscious thing, but it was more like, okay, you know what? Like I had to prove so much to so many people when I was young, and I can see it in these young guys walking around the Miami Convention Center, where they need to show that they're successful. And I get it. We're all, as a young man, you got to show off. Like, when you go out on the field and you work hard, you want to show I'm a great player. I'm a great guy, and there's a little ego. That's good. That's healthy. But when you try to do it, when you try to express it or share it, and you're pushing it on other people, immediately, the undertones are like, you can feel that creepy, weird, it's not real, dude. You're trying too hard, like, okay, like if you went inside and you don't identify with, all the money you made or success or the way you look, or you had, your resume, and that's not who you are as a man. You're just whatever that is that you want to be. It's every person's determination of who they want to be. But if you're honest with yourself and you articulate it, and you have these deep conversations, and you go through suffering, like you really suffer in life, and you figure it out. I'm not saying you have to lose it all, but then you figure out who you are and who you're comfortable being. And then you're like, I don't have to be anyone in front of this person. This person doesn't have to like me. I respect this person. I mean, I command respect too, because I add value. I don't have a lot of time for nonsense. But I'm going to treat people with integrity. I appreciate the opportunities that I have. I want to share what I do, and I want to learn what you have to do. And that's a good boundaried relationship. And that's a healthy human being that I want to learn about. But immediately, if these guys are coming at me and there's some weird vibe that they got to show off, that there's some successful thing they're doing, or some weird, what I'm saying, that energy, people feel it. 1 million years ago when we were evolving, if you came from the other tribe and I came to your tribe, if I don't know your intentions and I can't read your body, and there's no such thing as language, and I feel you're gonna fuck me up, I'm getting away. Exactly. It's time to, like, we're going to battle. So like it's exactly the same thing. We're just like evolved apes, where we're looking at each other, just feeling each other out before we're talking. And then there's just all this, there's all these trappings of like nice suits and watches and cars and clothes and all this other shit. Like that's just, it's an illusion. I mean, yes, it conveys a little bit about the person, but I want to know, are you great at the business? Have you gone through something challenging? What's the edge that you have? what are your values, right? What do you truly value? And where do you want to go with this? How do you think? How do you communicate? How do you listen? How do you express yourself? All those things tell me about me wanting to invest or that person investing with me before I ever see a pitch deck.
No doubt. No doubt, man. It's just, if you go back and listen to that, for me, like where I see the biggest edge and like why it's like a no-brainer to work with people like you and hopefully people like me is, you know, first of all, you have to kind of know who you are, and you have to really be okay with who you are, and you have to have
Right.
self-awareness. Like
Right.
self-awareness is like such a key to have in business, and to know and be aware of the other person that you're talking to. Like perfect example, we all know that when you're going to those meetups and that person just can't stop talking about themselves, it's like
Yeah.
it's immediately. And I asked this before to you, Jeremiah. I go, how do these people get to these
I
places
know.
in their life?
I know.
Anyway, different story, and God bless them. All you can say. And but where I really see what you were talking about, and where I really see an edge in you, and what gives me confidence in just this podcast, and why people should listen, is because it's almost like the analogy of like having the player on the field who knows the business like you do, right? Who's in the business, who's fought on the battlefield, right? Who's literally in the trenches and used to be in the trenches and still is, in those trenches fighting, to now being the owner of the organization, right? So like, or the
Mm-hmm.
GM. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
more credibility from the John Elway who goes from that, quarterback to the GM, and
Mm-hmm.
you get way more because you were there. Or the Tony Romo who went from the quarterback to now he's the play caller. You appreciate it more. So I see that, like, if someone's coming from, just that, yeah, I went to Harvard, and I'm just as an example, and then I'm in Wall Street now, I believe I could buy this, type of asset and run it. It's like, maybe I find, possibly, but geez, the edge, I could see it being like, hey, I was there, I've done it, I've built it, and now I'm going and doing the stuff that is the top layer stuff of, learning those financial terms and all that great stuff, so that you can be even more value to the people that are working with you. And that's employees, that's investors, that's the sellers, the everything, that you're just giving more value by going that top, to take that next step in learning that stuff. So I think
A
that's
great.
just, it speaks to me.
Oh yeah, Marty, a great story. I was just listening to, I don't know, it was some YouTube short, and as Alexander, the ruler, right? He from Macedonia. He's on this ambition to take over to the end of the earth. That was his goal. They thought the end of the earth at that time was India. So his ambition was to rule the world. And as they were trekking east, his troops were getting so tired of the trek, and they're like, when is this ever going to end? And then he got hit with an arrow, and he was injured, and he was having a tough time being able to even get up and keep pushing the troops to the front, and he led from the front as a leader. And so everybody, when his moral or his like energy, his ambition was diminishing through him being hurt and injured, they muster up like a cup of water, and they were all thirsty. No one had any water. They muster up like one bowl of water, and they give it to him in the desert as they're pushing east. And he holds it up, and then he goes to drink it, and he dumps it on the ground, and everybody fucking cheers, and he's like, fuck it, let's go. So because if they can't have water, he can't either. And they pushed on, yeah, and they dominated Persia. So it was pretty cool, man. I love that.
I love it. I love that too. That's the stuff. And you have to be a little bit of a sicko to love that kind of stuff. But if you love that stuff, you kind of get where we're coming from. So I could appreciate that story.
Yeah,
Let's
and
end
you
it
hear,
there.
yeah, great leaders, man. Great leaders lead from the front. All of them.
I love
all
it.
of them do. Yeah. I guess to wrap it up, man.
Yeah.
I think we should explore more about, maybe funds and partnerships and, capital raising. I think, as you go through your journey, I'm happy to share it, share what I can teach you. And I think it's important right now because, it's crazy out there. A lot of, there's two schools, right? There's the passive and active investor. And, we're all to a degree both. And, there was a $200 million default in Houston on an apartment complex that was a year or two just in the making. So, we're starting to see sponsors that might be failing, and that could be the canary in the coal mine, telling us that, there's going to be some tough times ahead, where a lot of people got in the industry. They raised a lot of funds. They have a good thesis, but, the business plan and the team was flawed from the beginning. So we're going to see how this evolves. And I haven't looked into it too deeply, but a lot of my network have been sharing that with me. There was an oil and gas Ponzi scheme that just happened for $155 million, I guess, where someone raised money and there was nothing backing it. And there was some other guys that went to jail, a few years ago that were doing some type of nefarious activity. So I think more than ever, it's time to buckle down, and it's not so important about grow, right? It's fortify our defenses, get some liquidity, build up the players, the roster, make sure that you can sustain the hard times, right? Because we're all going to be beat up a little bit. And then we have to figure out, when we mobilize and we protect ourselves and our investors, then make those offensive, aggressive moves. I don't think it's, if you move too quick, too early, you can get put to sleep, like in boxing, right? So you got to be careful and feel out and understand that next calculated move. Once you feel you can make that calculated move, then you can put everything behind it and throw that punch. So, I think I just want to share with you, be patient and continue to do the reps. You got the right assets you're looking at, and you got the right, region, and you have a good context. You have the right team managing the stuff. So now it's like, I know you want to push these deals over the finish line, but I think if you're just patient, you can structure the deal to be very advantageous for you, because I think what I'm seeing in the market is over the next 6 to 12 months, operators are more in demand than the money. In the past, everybody wanted the money more. Whoever could pay the most was the winner. Now it's not really the case, where there's less and less people paying high prices for property. Now, when I sell a property or with other people, they're looking at, can this guy really close? Can this guy really execute? Can this guy really get a loan? Do they really know what they're doing? Right? And same with investors. Can this guy really do what he's saying? Maybe I don't need the 20% return. Can I get the safe, 12 to 15 and get some good tax benefits right now? So I think we got to shore up with what we got and have some really conservative assumptions, and then, push the envelope a little bit on the negotiations. For me, what I'm doing, I'm seeing it tip in my favor, where I'm willing to walk away, and I'm like, you know what? That's my best and final offer, and I'm cool with letting it go. And like you said, right before the call, you were on that call with the other seller, giving you a call, go list it, go see if you can sell it, go get it tied up in contract. If they get it to the finish line, God bless them. But at least, if we're looking at the competition like the art of war, we know our enemy. That person just deployed a lot of resources on an asset that they're not going to make money on, because we're all playing the same game. So good. Go exhaust your resources on something that's a useless battle. Go take that hill. I don't even really want it. I'm gonna go fight another battle, and I'm gonna win the big war, because you just blew all your resources on a ridiculous asset. I was gonna buy it, but I'll buy it and just use very few resources and add it to the fold. So just think of it in that big picture instead of getting worried about.
It's very good. It's very helpful, and it's perfect timing for me. So that's good. Incredible.
All right, brother.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being here, Jeremiah. Thank you as always. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thank you for tuning into the Marty Grizzanti Show. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us an honest rating and review. If you're on Spotify, make sure you follow us for weekly episodes.